Hi, good morning. Welcome.
Good
Guys, we're going
morning.
to give it just a minute, just to give people a couple more minutes to come into the meeting, and then we are going to start prompt just to make sure that we respect everybody's busy schedules. Hope everybody is having an amazing week and an eventful week. We're really excited about today's WebEx focused on great tools and solutions to support us in the COVID and then also the post-COVID. So very excited that you guys joined us today. And I believe that I'm going to go ahead and get started because it's a little past 11:31. So thank you for joining us today. Tina Kraft with Fringe Benefit Plans. And Fringe Benefit Plans, we have been a pillar in the community for 50 years, and we are extremely committed to education and providing solutions for our community employers. And we're very, very passionate about the topic of employee assistance programs. They've always been important. However, when we go through a pandemic, everybody realizes the importance of having good tools and strategies to support with coping and resiliency. And so what we do as an organization is we always vet and partner the best of the best. And today our presentation is going to be hosted by Charles Nectum and Associates. Charles Nectum founded the organization in 1981 and provides personalized, skilled counseling and intervention to help clients and employees maintain a healthy, reliable, and a productive workforce. Charles studied at Columbia University. He is very astute in his education, and as an organization, they work with the first responders in critical issues. He was on the ground at Ground Zero, supporting the World Trade Center issue. As we know, that was a devastating time for our country. And then here locally, they also stepped in to support Pulse, and that was devastating for our community and for our first responders, and they stepped in immediately to help out. So from a psychology, a therapy, and a counseling standpoint, they are very diversified to step in to support our employers and our employees and their families with all of the different situations that happen in life. So with his knowledge focused in sports medicine, resilience training, and as a leader in employee assistance programs, I am honored to turn the presentation over to Charles, i.e. Chuck Nectum, to share with us some skills that will help us personally as well as professionally. So welcome, Charles. Thank you for joining us today.
Okay, thank you, Tina. And I have to tell everybody before I begin, I'm not a native of the Florida area. You can probably hear from my accent. Sometimes I end up parking the car in the wrong yard. I grew up in Boston and lived in New York City. As Tina mentioned, went to Columbia Graduate School there for many years and worked as a psychologist. So I have a slight accent, so I hope you can bear with me and understand what I'm saying a bit. And thank you for attending today. I know you're all busy with issues, but I think it's important to take a time out for a little bit and listen and to share. And we'll take some questions at the end of the session here so I can answer some things you might be thinking about. But the pause, the time out is so important. They asked a famous pianist how he got to be such a famous pianist, and he said anybody can play the notes. Anybody can play the notes. It's the pause. It's the time out. It's the space between the notes. That's where the beauty is. That's where the art, A-R-T, is. So, for all of us, we're busy. We wake up, we get up out of bed, we take a shower, brush our teeth, eat breakfast, run to work, whether it be in our home or if we're going to an office. We're probably working busier now than we worked before, many of us. And then home, it's you can't go out. There's issues. There's stuff to do. It's a non-stop run, and it's important to take the time out and take the pause to see how your life is going, what issues you're dealing with, and to work on that or adjust that. And I always say that there's nothing more important than good mental health. I don't care how much money you have or what house you live in or what job you have. If you don't have good psychological health, it doesn't mean that much. So counseling support, therapy, talking to someone, whether it be a spouse talking to a counselor, a child using counseling, or us using it, is very, very important. I was traveling a little bit recently, and yes, I did get on a plane, and it was fine. I had a whole row to myself. And when I met somebody there at the airport, someone said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "I work as a psychologist." And they said, "Psychologist? Does that mean you work with crazy people?" And I said, "No. Crazy people are so crazy they think they're normal. We work with healthy people who recognize they're going through something. And we're all going through something right now with a change of environment, a change of lifestyle. And what do we do about that?" Also, the person said to me, "You must be like a shrink." I said, "Yeah, what we try to do is shrink the problem and expand the person." So I'm often demystifying what counseling is, taking the mystery. It's for healthy people. It's people who recognize they're going through a personal issue, a family issue, a marital issue, anxiety issue, issues with children, etc. And it's important if you're going through those things to get the appropriate support, be it counseling. If you had your plumbing wasn't working, you would call a plumber. If the electricity isn't working, you call an electrician. But somehow with mental health, we think that it's embarrassing to get some help. We don't want to talk about this stuff. So we push it under the rug. The rug gets bigger and bigger and bigger until we trip over it in the form of, disease or getting sick or getting run down. And even if you look at the word disease, you cut that word right in half. It's dis-ease. Dis from the Latin meaning not at ease, dis-ease. So we treat the symptom often, but not the cause. Tina mentioned I worked way back in the 80s in New York City, early 80s, with the New York Yankees and the Mets and Giants and Jets football and baseball teams. And back at that time, there was no such thing as sports psychology. We had sports medicine. So if an athlete got injured, you see the team physician. The physician fixes you up and sends you out to play again. But what was happening was the same athlete kept coming back with a different injury, same person, different injury. So the team owners were concerned. How come so-and-so kept getting re-injured? So I was hired to find out what the story behind the story was. How come the injuries were mounting up? So when I talked to these athletes, I'd find out usually something else was happening in their life. It may be personal problem, a family issue, or substance abuse issue. Some didn't like New York City. Some couldn't stand George Steinbrenner, who owned the Yankees at that time. Something was going on psychologically. The physicians treat the symptoms, but we as therapists, deal with the cause. So that's I think important about counseling, really getting to issues of who you are, of how you live, of decisions you make. And it's interesting, 2,000 years ago in the country of Greece, in ancient Greece, doctors would only get paid if the people they were working with were healthy. So if you're healthy, you pay the doctor. So the doctors of ancient Greece were interested in two things. One was nutrition, because the food and the water is like the gasoline of your system. And the second was psychology, how you felt about life and issues and your situation. So if you handled those two areas, you'd be healthy and you pay the doctor. 2,000 years to today, how does the medical system work? You're sick, you pay the doctor. Matter of fact, the sicker you are, the more you have to pay. So again, how we handle our issues, how we eat, how we live is so important. Even with the virus situation, I have a lot of hospital clients right now dealing with issues. Most of the cases are from elderly people. In the other cases, many of them are from people who have a compromised immune system and also don't take care of themselves well. You have to keep your immune system up and healthy, and by eating, by dealing with anxiety, If you have stress and anxious times continuously, you end up depleting your immune system, so you're less able to fight off infections. And then there are viruses all over, the place, on your cell phone and in your cutting board, in your kitchen, on your shoes. But usually we can handle that. But sometimes if the immune system is depleted, it becomes much more difficult to handle that. So understanding mental health is so important. But again, most people I find push those issues under the rug until the rug gets bigger and bigger until they trip over it, literally. So, people say get a medical checkup once a year or every other year. I say it's probably more important to talk to a therapist, a counselor once a year to deal with your situations. Because basically, our childhood makes us who we are. Your parents, for better or worse, are like gods, to us as kids. We depend on them for safety and for security, keep us alive. And sometimes there's a divorce situation where the security isn't there. There's a substance abuse situation in the home. Again, the security isn't there. And as kids, we have to adapt to that situation to make us secure, to make us survive and thrive. And sometimes we do things that aren't healthy. For example, you have obsessive compulsive issues. You probably saw that show Monk on TV, or know of Howie Mandel, the comedian who has that. When the world isn't safe growing up, when the messages that come to you as kids, the world isn't safe, you do things to compensate, to make it safe. And sometimes they aren't healthy for us, and they're not good for us. But we hide these things because we're psychologically feel we're embarrassed. We don't want to address it. And what therapy does and counseling does, it deals with what we call psychoanalytically, going back to the beginning of how you grew up, and then working on behavioral ways to make changes over time. You just make adjustments. And if you can't do that and things don't work out, you come back and try it again. You work on it again. You don't give up. You don't give up. Example, you may be working in a company, a young lady may come in, has a big bruise on her face, and you say to her, what happened? She says, well, my boyfriend, he hit me, and I know the relationship is not good. I have to get rid of him. It's not healthy for me. So intellectually, she understands the situation. But what happens? 3 weeks later, she's back, again with another bruise, something else. People understand it intellectually, but they need the coaching, the counseling, the timeouts to regroup, to understand why they're drawn to that situation, drawn to it because probably that's what she was used to as a kid. So even if situations are dysfunctional, you continue to be attracted toward that situation of the functionality, of moving in that direction. And counseling allows you to take a time out, understand where that comes from, and then work out ways over time to make changes and not to beat yourself up if you get stuck. So, I tell people that's why pencils have erasers. You can change things. You can make adaptations. You can change behaviors. But very, very difficult to do that on your own. Many years ago, there were some books called Women Who Love Too Much and Men Who Love Too Much, and the behavior patterns, and people would read them and say, yeah, I understand that makes sense, and I'm going to make changes. And they made changes, for 2 weeks, a month. But again, the imprinting of how you grew up is so profound, so difficult to change by yourself that they end up going back to those same situations. So counseling allows you to recognize it and then make changes over time to make sure things are fine with you. So, and that's what life is about, to make things healthy for yourself, make things work for yourself. When you feel stressful, what do? Do you eat more? Do you ease it with food, cookies or ice cream or comfort foods? Those aren't healthy. But to recognize, why we have these behavioral patterns, and then using, counseling and mental health services as a coach. You watch the NBA, National Basketball, the WNBA, women's basketball. These people know how to play basketball, but the coach is watching. And when things are out of sync, the coach calls a timeout. They reassess the strategy, what's going on. They send them back out to play again, and they watch. Is it working? Is it not working? Should we try something else? And that's the beauty of counseling. You take that pause, that break, as we mentioned in the beginning, a timeout to re-strategize, to rethink about what's going on in your life, and working your life so it's better and fun, and it's enjoyable. Life should be fun. It should be enjoyable. That's what we're here for, to enjoy the beach, enjoy the nature, to enjoy our job, to enjoy our families, to enjoy ourselves, most importantly. But if something is preventing you from having fun and enjoying life, then it behooves you to take the time out or use your employee assistance program or get some counseling so you can deal with that. I said to one group, I said, you got to have fun in life. It's really important. You have to have a sense of humor in life in the midst of strategy. And I said, if you don't have a sense of humor, you know where you're going to turn out to be? And the group I was talking to said, no, what's going to happen if we don't have a sense of humor? I said, you're going to end up being a supervisor. And they said, how come? I said, well, a poor supervisor has people above them, people below them. They're stuck in the middle. They're always doing this way and that way and this. And no, you don't want that. You want to have fun. And why you're working is so you have money to enjoy the life, enjoy what's going on. And if something is preventing you from enjoying the life, then do something to get the support. That's so important. And also, I said to a group recently, even if you don't use your employee assistance program or counseling service, share with your kids, how important counseling is, how important that is, because they're going to go through stuff. I said that to one group, and the next day I had a phone call on my EAP program from a kid 6 years old. I said, I'm calling this employee assistance program because I want a second opinion. He said, my father wants me to go to sleep at 7 o'clock. I want to stay up until 8 o'clock. What do you think? So we're used to dealing with, alcohol and anxiety and depression and all these other issues. And this little kid asking what time to go to sleep. The counselor said, look, you're 6 years old. You need a lot of sleep. It's healthy for you. Maybe you should go to sleep at 6:45. He said, well, 6:45, my father said, 7 o'clock, that means get extra half hour. Thank you very much. Hung up the phone. That was it. But what was so nice was that the parent said to the kid, look, if you're going through an issue or you have a problem, how do you solve these issues? By talking to a professional, by getting some help. Listen, they're going to be more complex at 16, at 26, at 56. But you put in someone's mind that you don't have to keep these issues inside. You don't have to literally eat away at these issues and eat more food. You don't have to live with anxiety. You can solve the problems, whether it's grief, and people die as we get older. That's difficult for people. In life we can control a lot: where we live, what we wear, if and when we marry, children, what job we have. But with death, no control. No control. We recognize it, but when it happens to us, it's just profound and so difficult to understand. And, the beauty of counseling, we work with people who deal with loss and grief, and to help them through that, very difficult situation. And really no two people grieve alike, but, from grief to personal stuff, to substance abuse. Alcohol is important to know about because some people are drinking more, staying at home now. And alcohol is a disease of denial. Denial. That's not the Nile River. That's denial. You can hook an alcoholic up to a lie detector test and ask them directly, you have a drinking problem. Alcoholic will say, no, I'm fine. And lie detector will say truth because they don't believe they have a problem. But if you grow up in that family system, you become an enabling child. You don't say, Dad, go to AA, or Mom, go to rehab. You act out. You do other things. You don't have people come over. You know, you don't want to have people visit your home. And maybe as a supervisor, when you grow up, you or an administrator or run a company, you're not good at handling issues because you're not used to that. You're used to enabling. So that's the beauty of, as I mentioned earlier, of understanding your origin, your roots, your imprinting. That makes us who we are. You know, we grow up big. We make adjustments along the way. But our roots, how we grow up in that environment, those first 10, 12 years, really make us who we are. So if you had issues or stuff or things, we have issues as grown-ups. So the way to handle those things is to get support and help, so people don't keep, like a rat in the going over and over, and a rat in a maze, just back and forth and back and forth. It doesn't have to be that way. You can actually solve these issues, whether it be eating disorder, whether it be depression. And everybody gets depressed. That's normal. But some people get so depressed where they can't go outside, they can't have a positive day, and they really need support. And I have a couple who, one of our clients in outside of Lake Wales area, who go to counseling on their anniversary every year just to talk about stuff. They don't have any major issues or things, but they say this is healthy because the fella grew up in a home with 8 kids, and the wife grew up in a home of 1 child, and just a whole different way of growing up. So they talk about communication issues and how they feel about things, and one needs more space than the other one. So to throw people together with different backgrounds is not easy as well. So counseling helps with people with issues, but people are often afraid to deal with that issue, especially men. I have to say, women are much better. They're more. They talk more about their feelings, their issues, their life, their loves. Their men keep that stuff inside, or are afraid of it most of the time. And it's like the story of the dog, D-O-G. There was a dog who was thirsty, was famished, was dying of thirst, and it was a puddle on the street. And the dog looked into the puddle and saw another big dog in the puddle and ran away. And finally, the dog was so thirsty, was so famished, it went back to the puddle and saw the other dog, didn't care, jumped in, and the other dog in the puddle disappeared. What was that story about? It was a reflection of the dog. It was afraid of those issues and constantly running and going and not addressing them. But once you address them, once you jump in, the issues become manageable. They become easier to deal with. In many cases, you can enjoy your life much better that way. But somehow, in our culture, there's a fear of this. There's a taboo with counseling, which is silly. It's everyone needs some help sometimes. We go through stuff in life. We get stuck. We get lonely. We get depressed. We have a divorce. We go through a loss. We go through issues. We're dealing with stuff from our childhood. Our family members sometimes drive us nuts. Spouses can do that. So we keep all this stuff in and have outbursts of anger and sadness and issues and just cover for these things. And the beauty of counseling, it opens up the covers. It allows you to disengage with your stress, to be unencumbered. It's like some people have issues they're dealing with. It's like going to the gym, taking a 25-pound dumbbell and carrying that weight with you all day, carrying those 25-pound dumbbells with you. Eventually, it's going to exhaust you, wear you out, run you down. What counseling does is allow you to take those dumbbells off your shoulders and put them down. And now with the virus and issues, people are dealing with even more issues of personal stuff and family stuff, and the kids are dealing with issues as well. So, the beauty of counseling support for people is even more important. So, that's a little bit about mental health. It's so important and so crucial in the times that we have here. I encourage you all to use services if you feel like you need it. And even if you don't, check in, say, hey, I'm calling, I'm doing this job, I'm doing this, how's things going, what do you think? It's great as a coach, it's great as terrific as more intensive therapy or counseling, and it can make a difference in someone's life. Listen, we all live 80, 90 or so, 70, whatever years, sometimes not, sometimes yes, but if things are preventing you or family members from enjoying the life, or you think you're not living to potential, then use counseling. It's there, it's available, and it can become the most important thing you do for yourself. I equate it as taking yourself out for a nice dinner. And instead of going to a nice dinner, you go for 45, 50 minutes to the counselor, talk to the phone counselor, talk to the face-to-face counselor. It's that time out. It's that time out. So, that in a nutshell is what we do. We have about 10 minutes or so. If you have any questions, please, you can maybe type them in or something, and Tina can read them out. I've been a psychologist for over 40 years, I hate to say, a long time. So if I can help you with something, point you in the right direction, or answer a question you might have, please type it in now, and Tina, you can read them out to me.
Wonderful. Todd, do we have any questions coming in?
At this point, we have not received any questions. So, folks, in the bottom of your screen, there's an option for chat. If you'd like to ask a question, please type in the chat what your question is, and then I'll read it out so that Chuck can answer it for you.
Okay. Yeah, any question is good. Even if is Tampa Bay going to win the Super Bowl this year?
I don't know about that.
All my Boston friends are jealous. You got Tom Brady, so that's good. Yes, go ahead, Tina.
Love it. So as what we have experienced is that a lot of employees were disrupted with the COVID change, and a lot of employees went into a virtual work environment without ever experiencing being a remote employee. Many of those employees are also parents. They've acclimated their children to distance learning.
Right.
There's a lot of psychology going on with their children, not being able to see their friends, celebrate the end of the year. There's a lot of unknowns as a parent and as an employee. And now we're talking about post-COVID, and we're talking about returning. And there's a lot of angst because school is not going to be in session. Camps are up in the air. Employees need to maintain their jobs and their benefits. How do employers best support their teams and their valued human capital with all of this change and all of these unknowns that impact life, but they also impact employment? What tools can we do? What tools can we use to support that very complex scenario?
Well, that's a good question. I could probably take an hour to help respond to it, but I'm going to try to do it quickly. A long time ago, when I was a kid, I used to watch this cooking show with Julia Child, the French chef. Remember her? She had this funny voice. Hello, everybody. I just like her voice, and I liked making things. It was kind of neat to watch the show. So one time I'm watching the show, and at the end of she made a souffle or a cake or something, and she took this thing out of the oven, and it was flat as a pancake. So she said to the group, she said, this is probably the greatest lesson I can teach you in life. Don't worry about doing the best you can. Just make do in life. Just make do. Don't step in it. You don't want to step in the do, but you make do in life. You things work in opposites. In baseball, you want to throw a fastball in baseball. The looser you hold the ball, the faster it goes. You want to hit a golf shot, drive it. You hold the. They used to say, hold the club like you're holding, a baby in your hand, very loose. So you go easy. You make do. You try to see the humor in things. You try not to, meditation is something that helps with breathing and relaxing. I've been a meditator since I took a course in 1978 in the Babylonian era. I love meditation. 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I sit and relax every morning and look out at the sky and just do nothing. So it puts me in a good attitude. I have a business here for 40 years. We have over 2,000 clients, and my attitude has always been make do, not try to do the best you can. You drive yourself nuts. In a hurricane, the big, strong the oak tree, gets pulled up at the roots, but the blades of grass are there the next day. They bend, they flow, they lie down. So sometimes we have to be more like the blades of grass, just going easy. And often with issues like this, I tell people that, make believe you're on a boat, on a river. You have no engine, no paddles, no oars, and you're drifting with the current. You have to trust the current. Sometimes I work with executives, and most of them, they can't swim. They can't swim. They can't float. You know why? Floating, you have to trust the water. You have to trust. You have to let go. You have to hold the ball easy. You have to make do, not flail away and make sure you're going fast. And no, things happen all the time. As the kids say, stuff happens. And so we make do with it. We have a sense of humor. One time, a long time ago, I was in college. Believe it or not, I was an English major in college. And I tell people English is my second language. It's broken English, my first language. And I had to go to a cemetery in Massachusetts and look at the tombstones and what was on the tombstones. And one of them said, with no name, life is a joke and all things show it. I thought it once and now I know it. Life is a joke and all things show it. I thought it once and now I know it. What was that person saying to us? Have fun, relax, make do. Be like the blades of grass. Go easy. And if you can't, get some counseling and we'll teach you how to do that through meditation, through relaxation exercise. So that's my answer in a roundabout way.
Okay, perfect. So, Chuck, we do have a few questions.
Yeah.
So, how do you address employees who appear to have fear beyond what would be considered normal? I assume that they're speaking in reference to like the COVID-19 and things like that.
Well, employees who have issues should, most enlightened companies have some type of employee assistance program. I hope that they do some training with the employees and that they recognize what counseling is about, that they have some brochures and they have some stuff. If they don't, they might have a benefits program where they can get some help. But I think the person, has to recognize it and want to make some changes. The friend or the associate, you can't push somebody to counseling. It's like telling an alcoholic stop drinking. It's never going to work. They're going to have to do it on their own. But, I think if they're aware there's a program, if they're aware of some support, or if you mention as an aside that, gee, I talked to that counselor, I was going through some stuff, it was helpful, maybe the other person might say, gee, that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll try that myself. So those are some ways to help.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so another question we have is, how can this be translated into team opportunities without pressuring engagement and or finding oversharers?
For teams, it's the same way. They should be aware that if they're going through issues psychologically, be it work stress or personal stress, there's ways to address it. And, counseling is like a coach. You take that time out, you address either, I'm a psychologist and I use counseling. So I go to my counselor, and I am part of a team, I'm part of a whole company, but I say I want to work on these issues. Sometimes I maybe don't communicate the way I should. Maybe people misconstrue what I'm saying. Sometimes I pronounce something that's not accurate. So how do I keep steady with my work, with my situation? And I get some good feedback with the counselor I attend. I like it. I know all the tricks and trades of counseling, so it's important for me to be honest and open with the person I use about professional things as well as personal things. So it's like a tool, an extra tool you have in your toolbox when you're working in teams or individually. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. So I have employees who are phobic about getting COVID-19. Right now, employee A is out awaiting test results. Employee B has demanded the company tell him what to do about having worked alongside employee A in close quarters for a week. Now he doesn't want to come to work until employee A gets a negative test results because he might be a carrier and infect everyone else. I don't want the responsibility of making everyone sick, he says. He was asked to call telemedicine, but he feels that there is no value as they will just tell me to quarantine for 14 days. How do we manage employees who are negative about everything except for staying home on paid time off?
I don't know. That's an administrative question, and you know, I, that's as a psychologist, you have to run your business the way you feel it's important to run your business. You can tell the employee, look, we'll have results in a day or two, and I'll let you know the results. And if they're negative, expect you back to work. I would think. If they're positive, then they I think you have to be flexible during this time. People are scared. People are nervous. They don't want to be sick. They don't want to bring something into somebody. So, waiting sometimes a little extra for time for reports is the way to go, because you have a happy employee. They'll feel comfortable. Worst thing you do, you bring somebody in and they're nervous and worried and they can't do their work anyway, and they worry everybody else around them. So, like I said, you got to make do during this time. You need some extra time. You can't demand them to come back, and they're not going to be focused. So we need a little bit of time. Take that breath. Work will be okay. We'll make do. Others will have to do some extra in the meantime, but we got to help each other during this time.
And I'd like to add to that, and thank you, Chuck, because that is the answer that we're not just hearing from the psychology perspective. We're also hearing that from our legal counsel. So we are doing a legal update for everybody in the community on Friday, and it's going to be focused on post-COVID because there is a lot of unknowns. Everybody does feel different, and every circumstance is different, but we are hearing from the legal perspective to accommodate.
Yeah.
So
makes good business sense. Yeah.
Right. And that legal update will be more focused on the legal fiduciary aspect on Friday's WebEx. And if anybody does not have that information, please reach out to me and I'll get you the link for that with Wilson McCoy. But Chuck, you do make the same point that we're hearing from the legal side. Provide solutions with EAP because not everybody has access to EAP benefits. Remind employees of their mental health, substance abuse benefits. And if you're able to add EAP benefits to support and assist, that's even better because some of the EAP will do 3 free visits and it can be more limited in nature. And then it becomes a financial situation, and some employees don't continue to seek care when it becomes a financial situation. So, Chuck, how does your team handle when EAP turns into a financial situation for the employee, the human?
Well, first of all, our EAP, I've been doing this now for about 39, 40 years with this business, and every call that comes into our company is handled immediately by a PhD or master's level clinician. We don't have any triage or customer service reps or put on hold or have to speak to an administrator. You talk to a therapist immediately, 24/7. I don't know any company in the EAP world that does that. And I do that because I think people want to tell their story the first time immediately. They don't want to be put on hold because otherwise you'll have no utilization and you'll have these crummy EAPs that are put in by the disability companies that offer no service. So we do it differently right from the beginning, and then we do a lot of training on site, supervisors and employees so they understand And again, like I mentioned, demystifying counseling, take the mystery out of this stuff and have people access to it and their families to use it. And then we have a network of therapists all over Florida, all over the country, all over North America for face-to-face counseling. We don't use United Way or community resources like that. They might be good, but they're the training ground for therapists. We only use private practice clinicians, so when someone calls up, if it's an eating disorder, anxiety, we connect them with the clinician who specializes in that area. So you really have best practice, face-to-face, and clinical support 24/7. We also do work-life programs, which are legal issues or financial issues or support programs or how to get a mortgage, how to pay bills, how to do credit financing, how to do budgets. Because some of these issues are intermingled, obsessive spending, compulsive issues are psychologically and financially related. So we provide all that service to keep your employees healthy and functional. Any other questions or comments or snide remarks or anything out there? Okay.
At this point, Chuck, we have not received any more questions.
Good. I hope it was enjoyable for you guys. Tina, if you want to say anything about your upcoming programs.
More than anything, I just I want to share with everybody the psychology of why you don't use a formal presentation, right? When you are teaching and coaching in these presentations, for most of the audience's professionals that are put in a position to coach and lead their teams, that you want everybody to just take a step back, relax, not be so worried about the PowerPoint or the formality, and just help everybody understand, because everybody on this call, Charles, has a lot of pressure. As human resources professionals and business leaders, we've not had to deal with a pandemic, right? This is something that's new for everybody. So they are trying to serve the business mission and vision as well as their human capital. And so they are caught in the middle of all of this stress and pressure too. So how do they best lead their teams while staying balanced themselves as leaders and business owners and human resources professionals, understanding that they're dealing with a ton of unknowns and a lot of complex human situations at this time? What's your best advice for them?
I've been running a business for over 40 years and a lot of employees all over North America. And there's a saying, the shoemaker's kids runs around with no shoes. You're good at helping everybody else, being a business leader, running a company or administrator, but often it comes from the top. You have to put the leadership skills. And I think it's important for leaders to all use counseling services, because you're making decisions with people's lives and your family life and your business direction. So, as a psychologist, I use counseling. As a business leader, I use it. So I take that time out to address issues, to deal with things, to get a better perspective on things. It's like taking a breath. Instead of, we try to go ready, aim, fire. Most of us go ready, fire, aim. We work on impulse sometimes, on not making a mistake. And that's sometimes not the way to go. You got to get a better perspective. Aikido, a Japanese martial art, works on the principle of stepping back. Your vision increases, your perspective is better, you take a breath, and then you can respond. So I think it's important, like I said, instead of ready, fire, aim, we do ready, aim, fire, and get to support ourselves. The shoemaker's kids shouldn't be running around with no shoes. You men and women running companies or departments need that coaching too. So I listen, in my business, I recommend and make sure it's a priority that all my therapists are in counseling or have used counseling at some time. Makes them a better counselor. So, just to take care of yourself, and sometimes you need that time out too from someone who's professional, who has experience. I do a lot of executive coaching and counseling with my EAP clients, and it seems to help them a lot because they're going through issues as well, personal and business.
Thank you. And for the audience, if there's anything that you need, that you're looking for as business professionals for solutions, please reach out to us, because what we are great at is connecting with the best of the best. And we can come on, we can have a conversation, and at the end, you guys can determine if that's the direction that you're looking to go in from a solution standpoint. So please keep us abreast of what information you guys need, because you're also going through this for the first time. And anything that we can do to come together to make this better, we're all in this together. So thank everybody for time today. Charles, including you, thank you for sharing your lens. Thank you for sharing your calm. I think that's one thing that is not an emotion that boils to the surface in a pandemic situation. So thank you for sharing that with us. And please, if you have any questions after today's webinar wraps up, know that we're always here to support and serve. So if there's anything additional that you need, let us know. And thank you, Charles. Thank you so much for you and your team. And
thanks everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a great day. Thank you.